What happens when three Brooklyn kids, each carrying scars from their broken homes and personal demons, channeled their pain into an album that would define alternative metal forever? Today, we're going to dive into the raw, unfiltered world of Life of Agony's River Runs Red, a concept album so honest and intense, it didn't just tell a story, it actually saved people's lives. Before nu metal and confessional rock took over the airwaves, the band dared to turn their darkest truths into music that still resonates decades later.
So what if they're not talking much? Then does it make sense to kind of lead the conversation? Just till it gets...
Formed in 1989 and from Brooklyn, New York, the history of Life of Agony begins with bassist Alan Robert and guitarist Joey Z, sometimes referred to as Skinny Joey Z, in their early days. Both of them went to the same high school, but it took them almost half a year of seeing each other every day at the bus stop, riding the same bus, as well as being in the same art class, in addition to both of them wearing Metallica t-shirts before they even spoke a single word to one another. Robert was already friends with the guys from the group Biohazard, growing up close to Evan Seinfeld, long before Biohazard got a label deal. Robert brought Joey Z down to the rehearsal, and soon enough Joey Z and Robert became roadies for Biohazard. Robert even designed some of the graphics for the band. The pair soon established contacts with promoters, and they learned a lot about how to book shows, something, as you can imagine, came in pretty handy later on in their careers. Joey Z had a cousin named Keith Caputo, and according to Joey, Caputo was an introverted, quiet, detached kid, being born in 1973. Sadly, though, he came from a broken home, as his mother was a heroin addict who died when he was just 1, and his dad was also an addict. Keith was abandoned by his father as a young child, and he was instead raised by his grandparents. Keith's grandfather was a strict disciplinarian and was often violent, not only towards him, but his grandmother as well. Keith compared his daily home life to that scene in Raging Bull where Robert De Niro's character flips the table over. Keith remarked having trust issues obviously later on in his life, and his dad did end up showing up when he was older, recalling to Rolling Stone, "I was mothering him through his life. I was giving him money, putting him up in my home, bailing him out of jail, buying him dope, watching him punch walls, trying to heal his gangrene." It was Keith's uncle that bought him a piano for his grandparents' place, and he soon started getting into classical music and going to lessons between the ages of 15 and 18, telling Rolling Stone, "I would pull a lot of sadness from Chopin and Beethoven. It was my inspiration growing up." Caputo was also into Nina Simone, Led Zeppelin, Queen, David Bowie, Pink Floyd, Muddy Waters, as well as Sinead O'Connor, as well as My Bloody Valentine. Keith's initial vision was to attend Juilliard and become a classically trained musician. His cousin Joey Z, meanwhile, also came from a broken home with a violent alcoholic father who was kicked out of his family house. Joey was into heavier music groups like Metallica, White Zombie, and Sepultura. My breath is highways for dear. Alan Roberts' parents both worked in the school system, and his dad also took a second job to support the family. But Alan was a shy kid and struggled with depression, something his parents weren't initially aware of since he wasn't really acting out in front of them. As a result, Alan channeled a lot of his dark feelings into artwork, drawing comics, but his artwork was pretty gruesome and involved a lot of revenge stories. But strangely enough, this artwork actually helped him make friends at school because his classmates were really interested in his work. He soon started selling his art at book fairs, and much later on in his life, he published coloring books and comics. Robert didn't learn music until much later in life, starting at the age of 16 or 17, when he started to play guitar and he was self-taught. His girlfriend was pretty proficient at the instrument, and she taught him some basic Metallica riffs, and he soon bought a Black Sabbath tab book and learned about 10 Sabbath songs. He was going down the path of learning scales and reading music, but after learning John Lennon couldn't read music, he decided that he also wanted to play by ear. Joey Z, Keith, and Robert were all latchkey kids and obviously had a lot of pain inside, and they soon started inflicting that pain on the outside world. They smashed windows around the neighborhood and destroyed property, and they soon started gravitating towards aggressive music to get their anger out. They also became frequent attendees at L'Amour Club in Brooklyn, which played host to a lot of hardcore bands. Caputo was underage at the time, so they used to have to sneak him in a drum case. And there was also a frequent police presence at L'Amour, as blood and teeth lying on the floor were also a frequent sight at the club's violent shows. The trio soon turned their attention to starting their own bands and writing their own music. Joey Z had some friends that he would jam with and knew his cousin Keith could sing because he had heard him sing while playing piano. So one day he asked Keith to come jam with him and his friends. But Keith honestly never thought he'd front a band because he didn't think he could sing. Keith told Rolling Stone, they were like, "You're singing for the band." And I'm like, "Guys, I can't sing." It was during their first jam together, Keith was so shy that he read the lyrics off of a Raid can into the microphone, and soon enough the seeds of Life of Agony would be planted. Joey Z and Keith soon started playing in a band called Isolated Fear, taking part in a Battle of the Bands competition in high school. Practicing across the street from them was Robert's thrash band, an outfit named Beheaded, which he sang and played bass in. Joey Z and Keith's band soon lost their bass player, so Robert joined, and they decided to change their name to Life of Agony. The name came from a dream that Robert had, with a bunch of newspaper headlines falling on a tiled bathroom floor, with one of them reading Life of Agony. For a brief moment, though, before they called themselves Life of Agony, they did use the moniker Capital Punishment. Robert designed the band's logo, with each piece representing one of the band members. Early in the group's career, Robert would be the principal lyricist and melody writer for the band, and he took inspiration from the stories he had heard from Keith and Joey Z. As for drummers, Life of Agony went through quite a number of them in their entire career. Life of Agony's members' broad range of influences created a sound that had elements of grunge, hardcore, and metal, and Life of Agony played their first gig in New Jersey in February of 1990 at a place called Faces in Kingsburg. Surprisingly, the band sold out their first show, and the group started playing gigs in the hardcore scene, but they didn't identify with those bands, feeling more like outcasts and even catching flack from some of these bands as well. Joey Z told the New Jersey paper, "We grew up in the hardcore scene and our roots are in hardcore music, but as time went on, we became a little more melodic. I don't think you can call us hardcore." Despite not getting love from other bands, they did develop a following, and they soon started playing shows all along the Eastern Coast in cities like Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and of course New York City. It was during this period of time Robert was working at a newsstand on the weekends and playing shows with Life of Agony during the week. Robert would end up doing a gig, and then he would get dropped off by Joey Z at his job at a place called Mill Basin Stop in Brooklyn. He'd be on no sleep, and he'd write lyrics on the sheetrock in the back of the store. It was once Life of Agony got signed, they would cut out that sheetrock with the lyrics on it. In August of 1990, Life of Agony recorded their first demo tape, which was actually done in Josh Silver's studio. Josh Silver, you guys might remember, was the keyboardist in Typo Negative, and Silver was really instrumental in helping shape Life of Agony's sound, suggesting they use a D tuning instead of an E for a heavier sound. Silver also suggested they borrow Typo Negative's drummer Sal Labrascato as well. By 1992, Life of Agony were regularly selling out shows at L'Amour on their own, and the momentum kept going in their favor as bigger touring acts started having the band open for them, and this of course led to the group getting on the radars of Roadrunner Records. But it wasn't a done deal right away, as the label's A&R guy, a person named Monty Connor, had some reservations about the band's sound, especially Caputo's voice, who he thought sounded quite similar to Glenn Danzig. But he eventually realized that's what made the band so unique, and he decided to sign them to the label. Roadrunner at the time was relatively new and had a lot of heavy acts on their roster like Sepultura, Typo Negative, Fear Factory, as well as Biohazard. It wasn't just drummer Sal Labrascato that Typo Negative shared with the band, but they also shared the same manager, and Josh Silver even produced the group's first album, River Runs Red. Their first record for Roadrunner was a concept album, with Robert telling Metal Sludge that they got the idea for the album recalling, "We love Pink Floyd's The Final Cut and The Wall," adding, "Both albums made a huge impact on us, so I think we started to incorporate more melody in our songs because of that influence, especially vocally, and we started to realize soon after we got signed that we wanted to create a concept album." That was definitely a big departure from what other bands around us were doing at the time. Titled River Runs Red, their debut album would be a conceptual narrative record telling the story of a protagonist who comes from a broken home, touching on themes such as self-harm, abuse, as well as neglect. The band would frequently draw comparisons to both Prong and Propane, who they actually would tour with to support the album. Caputo told Rolling Stone pretty bluntly about their debut album, "Our first record was basically my diary." While their debut album wouldn't chart, Life of Agony still got a good amount of attention, being featured on MTV's Headbangers Ball, and they even opened for Anthrax. The record ended up selling about 150,000 copies domestically. A respectable debut. Now keep in mind, the year the band released River Runs Red, Robert was still in his senior year of college, attending art school, And it was during this time Life of Agony got a multitude of touring offers, so Robert had to decide whether he was going to continue with his education or stay in the band. Ultimately, he chose to put his education on hold and tour with Life of Agony. River Runs Red is a very relatable album for a lot of people. You have to remember, this was a time when there was no talk of mental health. The internet was not widely accessible to people who could seek others who were going through the same thing. Music, however, was one of the places where people could find solace in. However, some in the press criticized the band for glorifying self-harm, but Life of Agony shot back against these accusations, with Caputo telling a Connecticut paper, "We're sick of the problems of life and would like to use our frustrations as a way to show our fans that they're not alone and to help them cope with their problems." Robert added, "It's taboo, but it crosses everyone's mind. It's a subject that people don't want to talk about." River Runs Red became a hugely influential record for the musicians who came after Life of Agony, and it's since made many best of lists for the alternative metal genre. The early 90s were a pretty turbulent time in music. Grunge had exploded, bringing all that angst and alienation to the forefront. But Life of Agony was brewing something raw, more visceral, and more ambitious with its storytelling. They weren't just reflecting some general discontent, they were building a specific horrifying world. River Runs Red is not an easy listen for a lot of people. The album's narrative arc feels like a Greek tragedy, an inevitable downward spiral. The lyrics of the songs might not always directly narrate what's happening in the skits, but they amplify the emotional core of the story, touching on the band members' personal issues while keeping that suffocating atmosphere of the protagonist's life going. It's not just an album, it's a diary of damnation, a meticulously crafted story chronicling the final week of a troubled teen. The narrative unfolds through the songs, but it's punctuated and made chillingly real by these interspersed skits titled Monday, Thursday, and Friday. And these aren't musical interludes, they are raw, fly-on-the-wall audio snapshots featuring answering machine messages and harrowing domestic disputes that drag you right into the protagonist's collapsing world. The week kicks off with Monday, and right away you're confronted with the protagonist's mother, not as a beacon of warmth and safety, but a cold person. Then the scene cuts to an answering machine, and his girlfriend is breaking up with him, and the weight of this introduction is just crushing, setting the tone of inescapable bleakness. The songs that follow, like the title track, leave little to no room for the doubts about the dark thoughts consuming the protagonist. The album's raw emotional honesty and its willingness to tackle deeply personal and painful themes basically prefigured the confessional style that would become a hallmark of so many bands in the years that followed. Life of Agony provided a kind of blueprint for how to merge heavy, aggressive music with profound vulnerability, as well as narrative depth. Many fans have even told the band over the years that the album literally saved their lives because it made them feel less alone in their struggles. By Thursday, things have only continued to get worse. The protagonist returns home, only to be met with another tirade.
Don't bother coming in anymore. I've had enough. That's it. You're fired.
Each message feels like another nail in the coffin. Tracks like My Eyes reflect this deepening despair, and the horrifying climax arrives with Friday. The sounds are raw, the implications devastating. It leaves you pretty much in a state of shock. The band wouldn't revisit the narrative directly for over 2 decades until their 2019 album, The Sound of Scars, which explored what might have happened if the teenager had survived. But back in 1993, there was no reprieve, only the chilling finality of Friday. The title track surprisingly ended up in Season 3, Episode 5 of The Office. Titled Initiation, in the episode, Ryan is taken by Dwight on what he believes is a sales call, but instead he's brought to Dwight's beet farm for an initiation. You can hear the song while they're in the car.
Just as you have planted your seed in the ground, I am going to plant my seed in you.
Oh, I think you know what you're saying.
So what are your memories of River Runs Red? Did it impact you guys? How do you feel about his themes today, all these years later? Let me know down in the comments section below. And if you guys want to see me do more deep dives into controversial or influential albums like this one, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support really helps us keep going. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.